How many of you would all love a good swim in the oceans or even the pools? Pretty sure that the majority of us do, isn't that right? The beautiful underwater of the oceans and the clean surface of the pools, always a fun and adventurous time. Well, what if we were to spice things up? What if we were to swim on the roads we walk on today? Imagine your boss calls you saying you're late, and instead of speeding up your car, it is possible that you speed up your boat this time. And what if we had to swim to the kitchen from our room where our mom calls us? I know, I have a pretty wild imagination. But hey, who knows where the future lies, right? I mean, considering the rate at which global warming is increasing, it won't take long until the ice caps melt and the Earth faces all the consequences. What is your opinion about my wild imaginations now? Do you think such a thing could happen? Well, why don't we dig into this more and see if our imaginations justify what is about to come? Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Discover X. In today's episode, we'll talk about how the Earth will change if all the ice melts. Before we begin, do smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on post notifications for more mind-boggling content. So without any further ado, let's dive right into the video. We humans may be the most intelligent creatures on this planet. However, do you think we are fulfilling the responsibility of taking care of our planet? If you ask me, I would have to disagree with that. During the past century, human activities have resulted in many damages to the environment, and I think we can all agree on that. Let's talk about the greenhouse effect, for instance. The release of large amounts of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere has been one of the major effects of human activities. Most of these gases arise due to the burning of fossil fuels to produce energy. As we've been learning from elementary school, greenhouse gases are responsible for trapping energy in the atmosphere, resulting in a warm planet. And that defines what greenhouse effect is. As much as this natural cause is essential, at times the excess of these greenhouse gases can result in unwanted consequences. The climate may change, and this can bring harmful effects to the humans and the ecosystems as well. The last ice age ended thousands of years ago, and since then, humans have adapted to the stable climate. However, the real question is, how long will we be able to enjoy this? With the greenhouse effect getting worse, there is no doubt that global warming is something to challenge. As we all know, global warming is the increase in the Earth's temperature. A warmer climate can bring changes that affect our water supplies, agriculture, natural environment, our own health, and bring more threats. Some climate changes are unavoidable, and sadly, the fate of those are not in our hands. For example, carbon dioxide can survive in the atmosphere for nearly a century, and with this, the planet will warm up rapidly. And I don't think it would take a degree in rocket science to understand the consequences of that. Scientists have predicted in the past that the results of climate change would include loss of sea ice, meaning the melting of ice caps, accelerated sea level rise, and longer, more intense heat waves. And I'm afraid that these results are already happening as of now. The world's ice reserves are melting rapidly, and that's an unfortunate fact. Given the current rate of temperature rise, it is likely that the ice caps will continue to melt at an unprecedented rate for decades to come. Have you ever noticed the change in a glass of water when an ice cube melts inside it? What happens to the water level? Does it increase or decrease? The truth is, above or below the waterline, a melted ice cube replaces the same volume of water. Now let's add salt to the mix. In the case of a 1 cubic inch ice cube, the water level in the glass will rise. That rise is displaced salt water. It's an increase in the volume of 2.6%. That's a fairly small amount, isn't it? But what if you apply this theory to glaciers and all the floating sea ice? And if you didn't know, 5.8 million square miles of our planet is covered with ice. And if all of it were to melt overnight, the global sea level would rise approximately 230 feet. That's enough to cover London's Tower Bridge. And all 7 continents would be partially underwater. Scary to even think of, isn't it? The effects of global warming have been quite evident over the century. The unusually rapid increase in the Earth's average surface temperature over the past century is primarily due to the greenhouse gases released with the burning of fossil fuels. The planet's average temperature has increased by 1.1 degrees Celsius since 1880. Global mean sea level has risen about 21 to 24 centimeters since 1880, with about a third of that coming in just the last 2.5 decades. If cities like London would face huge consequences from this, imagine the small countries situated at almost the sea level, such as the Maldives, Marshall Islands, Kiribati, and Tuvalu. They would be submerged beneath the ocean and perhaps would not even exist at the worst-case scenario. Their entire population will face the hardest challenge and would have to migrate somewhere else, resulting in the largest refugee crisis the world has ever witnessed. 150 million total climate refugees from around the world may exist by 2050, and by 2100, that number could rise to 2 billion people, which is about 18% of the global population. And the surviving people would have a lot to face. All that melted ice would release carbon dioxide into the air. Ice needs high CO2 concentrations to melt to begin with. Given that oxygen content in the atmosphere would remain the same, you would slowly start to choke from breathing the air. Estimates may vary, but reports say 1.5 trillion tons of carbon dioxide lurk beneath the Earth's permafrost. That's more than 40 times the CO2 released into the atmosphere due to human actions last year, and double the amount of gas in the atmosphere today. Some scientists say it would take more than 5,000 years to melt all the ice present today. If we continue adding carbon to the atmosphere, we might witness an ice-free planet with an average temperature of 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 26.5 degrees Celsius. The entire Atlantic seaboard would vanish, along with Florida and the Gulf Coast. In California, San Francisco's hills would become a cluster of islands, and the Central Valley a giant bay. The Gulf of California would stretch north past the latitude of San Diego, which probably won't exist by then. The Amazon Basin in the north and the Paraguay River Basin in South America would become Atlantic inlets, wiping out Buenos Aires, coast and most of Paraguay. Mountainous stretches would survive along the Caribbean coast and in Central America. Africa would be perhaps the least severely affected continent, but with the extreme heat waves that followed, most of the continent would be uninhabitable. In Egypt, coastal cities like Alexandria and Cairo will be swamped by the intruding Mediterranean. Thousands of years from now, the Netherlands will probably cease to exist, surrendering to the sea, and most of Denmark will be gone too. Meanwhile, the Mediterranean's expanding waters will also have swelled the Black and Caspian seas. The land now inhabited by 600 million Chinese would flood, as would all of Bangladesh. The inundation of the Mekong Delta would leave Cambodia's Cardamom Mountains stranded as an island. Predominantly desert, Australia would gain a new inland sea, but it would lose much of the narrow coastal strip where 4 out of 5 Australians now live. Antarctica would become more of an archipelago, but unlike the Antarctica of today, this Antarctica would likely be habitable. With changes in the ocean current, sea life will be affected. With the ice caps melting, species like polar bears, walruses, seals will lose their own habitats, and ocean-dwelling animals like bowhead whales and narwhals aren't immune to these changes either. These creatures would face a massive extinction. The few ones who survived would leave their homes to find a better place to live. A change in sea current and an increase in air temperature difference between night and day would also mean dramatic weather changes, including changes in the winds. Heavy rains would hit the deserts, and areas with significant rainfall would dry out. This would devastate agriculture and cause a global famine. With no ice to reflect the sun's rays, the sun would draw more moisture from the oceans, making more clouds in the sky. The clouds would gather near the mountain areas, and eventually, rainfall would flood them. Oceanic hurricanes would occur more often, causing even more floods. As sea ice melts, energy and oil companies would take it as an opportunity to search further north for untapped resources using a process known as seismic blasting, where they shoot air explosions into the water to map the ocean floor and find oil. Of course, this has detrimental effects to the whole ecosystem of the ocean, while also causing physical trauma and habitat relocation in whales. So what can we do to prevent this nightmare from happening? Reducing humanity's dependence on fossil fuels is perhaps the best way of mitigating this challenge. Geography will always play a big part in a country's ability to generate renewable energy, so some countries will have to work harder than others to get a 100% renewable position. In China's case, demand is the biggest issue. In other countries, governments need to promote the importance of renewables and invest in making it possible. Countries like Iceland, Norway, Kenya are now producing almost 75% of their power from renewable energy resources, like solar, wind, hydropower. Global investments in renewable energy rose by 57% between 2008 and 2015. Additionally, 19 countries, including the United States, Japan, Canada, Germany, and Mexico, also developed long-term plans to decarbonize their economies. If we continue to do so, perhaps we will see a better future. So that's it, folks. Remember to let us know your opinions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content, and we'll see you next time.